Hey guys, welcome back. I'm going to be looking at dealing with missing values. For a lot of time, in fact, most of the time, you'll be working with data set that will have tons of null values, missing values, because a data set cannot be 100% perfect. So you would have missing values. So you need to know how to deal with these missing values. Otherwise, you would not draw the necessary insight and you get errors for some functions in your analysis. So here I've just created a data frame using a numpy array of that contains 3 rows, and I've used nan values, not a number. So np.nan is just a numpy way of creating a null value. So here, let me just, okay, so new df. Let me run this and let's look at let's see what our, yes, so here we have our df with 3 rows and 3 columns, and we have some nan values. So I don't like these rows. Let me rename the columns and just say, another way to rename columns is just by saying your df dot columns, and then you pass in the name of the columns that you want. So I'm going to name them A, B, and C. So if I'm going to check again now, yes, so I have A, B, and C. So there are different methods by which you can deal with nan values. So I can just drop all the nan values. I can say new df dot drop na. If I do this, it would remove all the non values. Remove all the non values. Yeah, drop now. Yes, so you see, it has removed the first and the second and the third row because they contain non-values. So the default, this drop now function, it takes the argument of the axis, but the default axis is 0. An axis is equal to 0 means you are dropping none by the rows. So if I set this to 1 now, it will drop the null values by column. So that means it will drop this first column because this first column contains null values. This also contains, so instead of dropping by rows, it will drop by column. So we have only C left here. So let's execute this, and you see we have just C. So sometimes you might have all your rows and columns containing non values, and it wouldn't make sense for you to drop null values because you wouldn't want to drop all of your columns. So a way to deal with this is just to fill the null values with a value. So you can say fill now instead of dropping them with, you can say, okay, fill the null values with 0. And then when you do this, you see all the null values has been filled with 0. So instead of having none, you have 0 all through. So sometimes you might also want to fill them with a mean or a median of a column or something like that. So if you want to fill it with anything, you simply just pass in what you want to fill in with. Like if you want to fill the null values with, let's say, the mean of C column, and say dot mean. So C, when you look at C column, when we calculate the mean, this will be 1 plus 2, that is 3 plus 3, that's 6. 6 divided by 3, that will be 2. So the mean of C column will be 2. So we're asking the pandas to fill all the null values with the mean of this column. So that's why we have 2, 2, 2 everywhere. So there are different ways by which you can either fill them with 0, you can fill them with anything, you can fill them with the mean, the median, the mode, or anything that you feel comfortable with. So that's just a simple way to deal with null values. You can also check your df for null values by saying is null, df is null, when you say the new df is null, you see your df comes out as, so all of this. So when you have false mean that it's not null, and when you have true indicates that there are null values there. So if you don't want it to be here, if you want sum, you can say dot is null and dot sum. So it will give you the total number of null values for each of the columns. So for column A, you have one null value. For column B, you have two null values. And for column C, you have zero null values. So this will give you an idea. If you are working with huge data sets, it will give you an idea of how many null values you have and how to deal with them individually. So you can choose to deal with them by columns or by rows. So this is generally the basics of dealing with null values in pandas. So see you in the next tutorial.